Imagine getting the best news of your life. Your child, against all odds, is accepted into college. For a parent, it's a dream come true, especially when that child has faced so many obstacles. But what if someone came along and ripped that dream apart, literally? That's exactly what happened when a seemingly friendly neighbor, an HOA Karen, decided to tear up my disabled daughter's college acceptance letter. It all started innocently enough. We were celebrating this huge achievement when a confrontation with the neighbor turned into something far darker. She didn't just disagree with our choice to hang the letter proudly in our window. She took matters into her own hands in a way we never saw coming. The situation quickly spiraled out of control. Not only did she destroy something so important, but now, my daughter's future is hanging in the balance. The HOA Karen's actions have triggered a series of events that have led to a shocking investigation. We're now caught in a legal mess we never expected, and it feels like this story is just getting started. Stay tuned to find out what happens next. Will we be able to pick up the pieces of my daughter's shattered dream? Or has this one act of cruelty ruined everything? The investigation is only just beginning. To understand how we got here, you need to know a bit about my daughter, Lily. She's always been the kind of kid who refuses to let anything get in her way. Born with a disability, life hasn't been easy for her, but she's never let that define who she is. She's always worked harder, studied longer, and fought for every single opportunity that's come her way. So when the acceptance letter from her dream college arrived, it was more than just a piece of paper. It was proof that all of her hard work was finally paying off. We had planned to frame the letter and put it front and center, a symbol of her perseverance. But that's when the trouble started. Our neighbor, the so-called HOA Karen, has always had a reputation for being overly involved in other people's business. From day one, she seemed to have a problem with everything we did. The color of our front door, the placement of our mailbox. Nothing was ever good enough for her, and this time it was no different. She didn't just knock on our door to complain about the letter in the window. No, she went straight to tearing it down and ripping it to shreds. As if that wasn't enough, her actions triggered a series of events that have now led to an investigation. The HOA is involved, and it's not just a neighborhood dispute anymore. People are starting to ask questions. Why would she do something so extreme? And what could it mean for Lily's future? The more we tried to make sense of what had happened, the more questions we had. Why would she go to such lengths? It wasn't just a petty act of vandalism, it felt personal. The next day, I went to the HOA to file a complaint, but that's when things started to get even more complicated. The HOA Karen had already been in there, talking to the board. She painted the situation in such a way that made me and my family look like the problem. Suddenly, we were the ones being scrutinized. It didn't stop there. A few days after the incident, I started receiving calls from an unknown number. When I finally picked up, the voice on the other end was cold and formal. They introduced themselves as part of an official investigation, and the tone was chilling. It turns out, the HOA had decided to take action, claiming we were in violation of some obscure neighborhood rule about displaying documents publicly. They were treating this like a legal case, and Lily's college acceptance letter had become the center of the issue. It felt surreal. Meanwhile, Lily was crushed. The excitement of her acceptance was quickly overshadowed by the stress of this investigation. We were no longer celebrating her success. Instead, we were fighting to clear her name. Some of the neighbors started to gossip, siding with the HOA Karen, casting doubt on our intentions. It was as if the very thing that should have been a proud moment had turned into a neighborhood scandal. I kept asking myself, did this woman really think we were flaunting our daughter's future to provoke her? Or was there something deeper going on here? What was she really trying to achieve? And what kind of power did the HOA have over us that we hadn't realized until now? As the days dragged on, the tension only grew. Lily had been keeping to herself more and more, her usual confidence replaced by a quiet anxiety. I could see the toll this was taking on her, and it broke my heart. She'd worked so hard for this moment, and now it was all slipping through our fingers. The investigation wasn't just about the letter anymore. It was about her character, our integrity, and whether we were being good neighbors or not. The more the HOA and the Karen rallied against us, the more isolated we felt. One evening, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I showed up unannounced at the HOA Karen's house, hoping for some kind of explanation. I wasn't prepared for the icy reception I got when she opened the door. She didn't even try to hide the smugness on her face. Her words were sharp, accusing me of turning this into a bigger issue than it needed to be. She claimed that we were disrespecting the community by showing off our daughter's college acceptance letter like some kind of public display. But there was something else in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just about the rules. There was a deeper resentment there, something personal. As she spoke, I couldn't help but feel like I was missing a bigger piece of the puzzle. What was she hiding? Why did she care so much? That night, after a tense exchange, she said something that sent chills down my spine. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she whispered just before slamming the door in my face. I couldn't shake those words. They lingered in my mind, gnawing at me. Was there more to this situation than I thought? And could I uncover the truth before it was too late? The next morning, I got a call that changed everything. The HOA was taking this case to court. The pressure was mounting, and now we were facing a legal battle we never expected. The stakes were higher than ever. Would we be able to fight back, or was this war already lost? As I was grappling with the news that the HOA was taking us to court, I received a call that I wasn't expecting, one that would add fuel to the already blazing fire. It was from a local reporter, someone I didn't know but who seemed to know a lot about me and my family. They had been following the HOA conflict closely and wanted to know if they could get a statement. At first, I didn't understand why the media would be interested in something as small as a neighborhood dispute. But when the reporter mentioned the HOA Karen by name, I realized this wasn't just a simple legal battle anymore. Apparently, the HOA Karen wasn't just a local figurehead. She had connections that went deeper than I had ever imagined. The reporter hinted that she had been involved in other controversial situations, some that involved powerful people in the community. They didn't have all the details yet, but they suspected that Karen was using her position to manipulate things in her favor, and that she might have been doing it for years. I was stunned. Could she really have been behind other instances of harassment and intimidation in the neighborhood? What if this wasn't just about a college letter, but something much more calculated? The reporter mentioned that she had heard whispers about Karen's role in pushing for certain community rules and regulations that disproportionately affected specific families. Was this about our college letter, or was she targeting us for something else entirely? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. That night, I couldn't sleep. The weight of the situation felt unbearable. If Karen was this powerful, then what chance did we have in court? But as the night wore on, something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to let her win, not without a fight. I knew we needed to dig deeper into her past, find out what she had been hiding, and fast, because if she was willing to tear apart my daughter's future, what else was she capable of? The stakes had just gone from bad to worse, and now I was determined to expose the truth. I spent the next few days relentlessly digging into Karen's past. With a mix of desperation and determination, I contacted neighbors who had been in the community longer, searched public records, and even spoke to a few journalists who had covered her before. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Karen had been involved in multiple shady dealings, manipulating HOA rules for years to benefit herself and her friends. Her goal had always been control, and she used her position to tear down anyone who dared stand in her way. But what really hit me was a discovery I hadn't expected. In one of the old records, I found something disturbing. Karen had been involved in a lawsuit years ago for fraud, where she had tried to use her position to force a family out of their home, all to seize their property. It was a textbook case of abuse of power. My heart sank as I realized that Karen wasn't just attacking us for a letter. She saw our success as a threat, a symbol of everything she couldn't control. Armed with this information, I contacted the reporter again, and together, we managed to piece together the full story. The media got hold of the story, and soon, the pressure on the HOA became overwhelming. Within days, the board was forced to drop the investigation, and Karen was removed from her position. But just when I thought it was over, another bombshell dropped. As the HOA Karen was packing up, she turned to me with a look of quiet satisfaction. "You've won this round," she said, almost cryptically. "But don't think for a second that you know the whole story." I was left standing there, uncertain. Had I truly won? Or was this just the beginning of a much darker game I hadn't even realized I was part of? As I stood outside, watching Karen walk away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this victory had come at a much higher cost than I could comprehend. The future still felt uncertain. Who was really pulling the strings, and what would they do next?